We're going to be talking about rejection in today's video, and it's something that I think is extremely important, but something we don't often discuss because it's very uncomfortable. In this video, my goal is to kind of make you understand why we fear rejection so much, and also maybe understand what part it plays in your identity. So let's do it. I ain't felt like this in a long time. Do you remember the last time you got rejected? How did it make you feel? So rejection, let's talk about it. For most of us, what we feel like rejection is, a lot of our ideas of rejection comes from our experiences in our childhood. And a lot of the rejection that we have experienced comes from, let's be honest, it's from the people that we care about. Whether that's our parents, or like siblings, or friends and family. And what happens is that we build a tolerance to rejection over the years, and to the point where it can become almost something that we don't even acknowledge. But if we go back to our roots of where we first feel rejection, a lot of this comes from either our parents, as I said before, or like from school. And as we know, kids can be pretty horrible. Kids can be very, very mean to each other. And a lot of us develop this fear of rejection through our experiences in school. And as someone who personally went through a lot of rejection in school, I wasn't someone who really fit into any specific group. I had to kind of just like mingle about and just talk to everyone, kind of. It's something that really did stay with me for a long time. And it wasn't until I actually faced it head on and actually did some research into rejection and actually tried to understand it more, that I could understand that I was allowing my experiences as a child to define my reality as an adult. So let's talk about it in more depth and tell you how to stop doing that shit. So the idea of rejection actually comes from a biological mechanism in ourselves, just as humans. And that is the fear of being left out of a group. Basically the fear of being abandoned. And if we go back to our ancestors, this fear of rejection was actually, it made sense why they were afraid of it. If you were rejected from your tribe, your chances of dying were, extremely high. But nowadays, when we get rejected, our lives aren't actually at stake. However, our body isn't smart enough to actually understand this. We still feel like our life is at threat when we get rejected. I'm sure this is something you can relate to. I'm sure there's a time where you feel like, when you got rejected, it literally felt like your heart was beating super fast, you felt really anxious. Oh my gosh, like, am I dying? Like, you might even get like a bit of a panic attack. And all these are feelings that our ancestors felt, and we're feeling it almost through them in a sense. But what we have to understand and acknowledge is that a lot of the rejection that we feel today is not as big of a threat as we perceive it to be. Even as a child, the rejection that we feel, the only reason we feel it so intensely is because our brain can't actually comprehend what we're feeling. Like, we're not able to actually, or most of us anyway, aren't actually able to discuss our emotions openly as children. And that causes for us to internalize our feelings. So when you have this feeling of being rejected, instead of just being able to be like, oh, I felt bad because they didn't let me, into their group, or they didn't want to play with me. What we internalize is, oh, people don't want to be around me. I'm not special. I'm not important. I don't matter. And this is pretty sad. But it's the reality for a lot of us. A lot of us feel this way, or have felt this way, and we often don't know how to deal with it or process it. And it's something that can really affect the way that we, communicate and the way that we live as adults. And that's something I definitely experienced at that point. So now that we understand where rejection comes from, let's talk about how it can affect you as an adult. So as I said, rejection is something I definitely experienced quite a lot in my adolescence, and it's something that used to define my identity as an adult. So what I mean by this is that I would often reject myself in fear of being rejected by others. And this is probably something you do as well. And it's usually that feeling where you have that inner dialogue where it's like, should I talk to this person? Should I try this thing? But then you have that anxious thought of, oh, I shouldn't do that because, they won't like that. They don't want to talk to me. I'm weird. I'm a loser. Whatever it is. Whatever that inner dialogue is. What basically happens is that your brain tries to protect you from that feeling that you felt as a child of being rejected. And the brain does this by convincing you that it's on your side. That, I'm just here to protect you, like we don't need to go through that again. But what's happening is that you're creating a narrative for the reality around you without even experiencing the things that your brain wants you to experience, which is you know, having these connections, being able to talk to people, be able to like flow freely socially, your brain stops you from doing that because it feels like it's dangerous to do that. And obviously that comes from our experiences. But the truth is, we don't know the danger of these experiences until we've actually experienced them. So this is something I had to learn the hard way. I had to literally convince myself that people did like me, that I was likable, that I was lovable, that people could enjoy my company. And I did that by just stopping myself from thinking myself out of it and just acting. So what this looked like for me was in social situations where I used to, you know, have all these thoughts like, oh, I probably shouldn't talk to them. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Let me be quiet. Let me just like watch people basically. Instead of doing that, I would just talk. I would just say something. Literally, like, I would just say something. I would just blurt out the first one in my mind, which obviously probably isn't always the best thing to do. But what it taught me is that a lot of the preconceptions that you have in your brain, that, you know, this thing is bad, don't say this, don't say that, all these filters, a lot of them are just concepts rather than reality. Because humans are usually more susceptible to conversation than you think they are. If you go up to like an average person on the street and just start a friendly conversation with them, most people will probably just have a little back and forth and then be on their day. Like in your brain, you're convinced that, oh, you know, if I say good morning to this person, they're gonna fucking say, ew, no thank you. Which, you know, might be the case depending on how you look, you know. I don't know what you're dealing with, but but yeah, I think for the most part, people are susceptible to your energy. And if you're someone who's afraid of rejection, you may not realize it, but people can tell. Because either you'll be overcompensating, so you'll be trying to people please to make sure there's no chance that people reject you, even though that's out of your control, or you'll be super standoffish and have the energy of like, I don't want to get too close to you because if I let you in, you might hurt me again. So let's talk about some ways to kind of deal with this fear of rejection and kind of rationalize it so it's not as scary as it seems. So something that I did to get over my fear of rejection was rejection therapy. And this isn't like typical sit-down therapy where you talk with a therapist. What this literally is that you go out of your way to get rejected. I know that literally sounds like counterproductive, like I get over rejection by getting rejected, but it literally works. Like what I used to do is I used to like go up to people and try and like challenge myself to have like a little conversation with people, or just at the gym just try and talk to people. Just fuck it, why not? And I'd expect myself to be rejected, or I would like ask them a dumb question like, oh, can I use your weights that they're using? Some shit like that. And of course most people were like, oh no, I'm using it. And it's just like, okay. All it is getting the repetition of the thoughts that you have in your brain, it's disproving them by action. And that's the only way you can reinforce this new mindset and this new identity for yourself. If you allow your thoughts to be disproved, and the only way you disprove your thoughts is through action. You know what I mean? So if you want to make sure your thoughts aren't like these things that you feel like are super like accurate and they're always right, act on these thoughts. Like just do the thing that you think is gonna go wrong. I don't know if this is good advice right now, but it's an advice I'm giving. So if for example there's that person that you always want to talk to, but there's always a part of you that's like, oh, don't talk to them. It's like they're too cool for you. They're gonna say no. They're gonna reject you. Just fucking do it. And I guarantee it's not gonna go the way that your brain maps out. Simply because your brain doesn't know nearly as much as it thinks it does. And a lot of our preconceived notions are actually due to a lack of information. So our brain will just fabricate information to kind of, you know, draw out the dots and kind of connect the lines of stuff. But really, we don't know anything. We don't know anything until we act. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on rejection. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you found this interesting. I do like yapping about this kind of stuff. I find it interesting. So let me know what you think. And if you want to talk about any of the topics that I covered in this video, feel free to book a one-to-one call with me using the link in my bio. It's good talking to you. I'll probably see you in the next one.